some of the problems that come in our careers and in our personal lives, as well as ex-altruism. And I kind of wanted to play off of that and then move into, a more detailed session on how can we make it better. Specifically in the area of finding a career choice that works better for you than one that causes you to burn out. One that maybe matches your ex-altruism better, assuming that you are an ex-altruist. But even if you're not, how do you find one that matches what you're happy with? And I was really, really happy to hear the earlier speakers, Polar and I don't remember his friend's name, Lance, I think, who went through some of the same things, discovering first that the career that they were in, the physical place they were in, was not suited to them, their personality types, their interests, etc. And then taking positive action to change that, to make their lives better, and to make their careers better. So I'll start by telling just a short story about my career trajectory, career arc. I shared some of this earlier, which was my second day on the job. I kind of hit a high point in my professional career where I actually influenced and affected lives. And after that, it's been saving credit card numbers from having to be reissued, like not really meaningful and purposeful, as Andrew was talking about. And so pretty quickly, I had a nice life-changing event. I traveled the world for 3 months, took a leave of absence from my job and did that, and fortunately my boss held my job. Actually, she threatened to come and find me and drag me back if I didn't come back on my own. And after I got back, I realized that I kind of didn't like my job. I kind of didn't like what I was doing. So I did some soul searching and kind of had to find what matched my personality better, as well as my skill better. So I spent a few months thinking about it, pondering on it, understanding what it was I liked about what I did and what I didn't like. And then I tried to match my my career arc to what I thought was going to make me happy. So I was very, very new to the security industry at this point, and I put in place I called it a 5-year plan, although my timeline I really didn't know. And I understood that at the end I wanted to travel the world and do InfoSec stuff. Seems like a pretty cool job even now. So I realized that I would have to build a network of connections. I would have to improve my skill set, and I would have to get some experience doing the types of things that I wanted to do. And so I set out doing that. I pretty quickly was able to get into a career role where I could grow into that, and 5 years later I was able to achieve it. That was my way of going about solving that problem, but that's not everybody's way. So I'm interested to get some more feedback, to hear what other people are doing. One of the things that can really help and make a career meaningful to you and something that you enjoy doing is something that Dan Pink calls looking at 3 things. He says it's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And if you go out there and Google Dan Pink motivation, you'll find that he's got a book, and he's also got a short TED Talk, as well as a couple of other talks. If you go through the 15-minute, 20-minute presentation that he does, it's very, very good, and he provides a ton of support for it. I'll quickly summarize it, and then hopefully bring it in and apply it to more of an InfoSec field, where you can then potentially look at it in the context of your own stuff. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is, to some degree, calling your own shots, being in charge of the direction of what you do, day-to-day tasks, and having that ability to make decisions on your own. Mastery is being good at something and getting better. So having a skill set that you use that you're well qualified to do, and that you're learning all the time, challenging yourself, pushing yourself forward. Purpose is something bigger than ourselves. So when we go out and protect people's financial information, that's something that is bigger than ourselves, and that ties into ex-altruism, right? We tend to seek those things that have a purpose, that have a meaning. Nonprofit work, the stuff that we're talking about for Am The Cavalry, looking at security devices that have or devices that have the potential to impact human life and public safety. Those three things, if you can align those three things, you will be happy in your career. Josh often adds a fourth thing, which is understanding. To feel like you are understood and appreciated in what you do, that your work is valued, and having that feedback given to you. So I think back on the times in my life that I've spent, and when I've been sad in my career, the frowny face, I've been missing at least one of those things. When I found that other thing, I pretty quickly became much more happy, much more satisfied. My work improved because of it. And I'll tell you kind of another quick story as well that ties into that. At a certain point, I was fairly burned out. I wasn't, too depressed or suicidal, but I just couldn't manage to pull myself out of bed and go to work happily. I was late. I just zoned out sometimes, and I didn't handle it very well. So going through the process of figuring out what I wanted to do, I asked myself a question. Okay, if I quit my job tomorrow and went and just traveled the world, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst that happens? And we're very fortunate in our industry that my answer was the worst case is that I borrow money to come back home, live with friends, get another job in the industry, probably making more money than I was before, and being in a new company where I have the chance to learn, experience, and bring that experience from traveling the world back into play. So I realized that literally my worst case scenario was better than the path I was on. And that was very freeing. All of a sudden I wasn't afraid of losing my job. So to the burnout talk, that stress and that pressure was absolutely relieved. That allowed me to then seek autonomy, mastery, purpose, and understanding and appreciation. Even though I didn't have a definition for it, I sought that out, and I found that I was incredibly happy. Almost so happy that I didn't want to quit my job and travel the world, but that made me happier than staying there. So I'll open it up now for some Q&A. I'm really interested to hear what other folks have worked on, have done, and we heard from Polar and Lance earlier on what they did that was really productive. But throw it out there. Maybe Andrew, I'll put you on the spot. I know you recently had a career change. This is about career, professional development, yeah. Good. I like that. You mentioned creativity, getting creative, as well as exploring different areas as a short-term solution. One of the techniques that I know some friends use is they do gardening. It's a chance for them to build a garden, to plant things, to see the fruit of their labors, number one, at the end of the day, because you have tilled earth or whatever, and number two, over the course of 6 months. You get almost double rewarded that way. And it's the feeling of creation, like you're building something new and beautiful in the world. Yeah, it's very tangible. Yeah, and I think you had a question. Yeah, please. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, whether or not you get punched tells you how well you're doing in martial arts. Yeah, and there's a lot of people who do martial arts too. I know that I think Krav Maga is one of the current favorites. And the way I understand it, I don't know if that's the one that you do, but the way I understand it, it's always full speed, and you always get that feedback quickly. Like, I failed to block that fist. I need to get that. Ah, okay. Yeah, so I like not so much the violence aspect of that, but the art form, the artfulness that you mentioned, and I think that that's true in a lot of martial arts, and you're probably right. Krav Maga is probably just an aggression releaser or a stress releaser more so than creativity, art form kind of thing. Josh, were you going to say something before I? Any other questions, points, tips, techniques? Anybody else change jobs this year? Josh did. He went from protecting the internet to protecting code repositories. Yeah, I think so. And building those muscles in different areas, that's what today has been all about. I don't want to steal the thunder from the wrap-up session today, but being able to, for me, this side of it is really, really fun. The technical side doesn't interest me anymore. I've already figured out that if it's doable, I can probably do it. I won't be the first person to do it because it takes smart people to do that, but then I can copy them and I can make the technology do anything I want to. It's how do I look at other systems, break them down, understand them, analyze the critical factors, and then take advantage of them, right? How do I exploit the legal system? How do I exploit, through social engineering to get my point across to somebody who I wouldn't normally talk to? There's a certain analysis phase and understanding, and I think where a lot of times we confine ourselves to just looking at technology for technology's sake. If we broaden the scope of what we're trying to do, things would become fun again. We would also see that there's more value levers that we can pull to get the point across, and there's a lot of other things we can do. That's probably for me why social engineering is so fun in theory, is because I don't have to learn how to hack your system. I can call you on the phone and say, hey, I'm from the IT department, can you run this malicious software real quick? And you do, right? The people in this room probably don't, but it's amazing how much you can get without having to know anything, but just knowing the right process to go through. So yeah, I like these non-technical problems. I like to say, stop thinking as a hacker and start thinking like a hacker, right? Start looking at the problem as a firewall and understand that if you do expand the scope, if you include people, if you include business processes that you could potentially affect, if you include policy that you could affect, then you're thinking like a hacker, not as a hacker. And I think that politicians, I forget which one of the panelists or discussion people said it earlier today, but politicians are some of the best social engineers. They have hacked the political system of the world's biggest economy and bent it to their will. That's cool. That's a cool hack. I would love to see one of those guys walk in the door and give a presentation at Black Hat, how I pwned the government. Yeah, you do that, Austin Powers, but it really is. That for me is what keeps it interesting. And so when I look at potential career choices, for me, I'm an independent consultant contractor. So I look at projects and I'm like, well, this one seems interesting. This one's just technical. I already know how to do it, and I can do it in my sleep. You don't need me to work on that one. This one over here is really interesting. It challenges first of all, it takes advantage of my skills. Second off, it builds those skills. It also gives me the ability to go and discover a new place to make decisions on my own. And generally, I like to think that there's a purpose to what I'm doing. Even if at the end I drop the report and they never look at it, that's depressing, but it happens. So anything else before we turn it over to the last session? Maybe we'll do the last session a little bit quickly so that everybody can go stand in what I'm sure is a giant line for the keynote speaker. Okay? Yes. Yeah. Get the voices out of your head first, yeah. Yeah. I think a couple of people offered suggestions earlier, which I'll repeat because you weren't here to hear them. But get together with other people who have common problems. Talk to them. This is a good venue for it. It's a good forum for it. I think that we don't take full advantage of these types of events, or the chance to be with each other, because a lot of times we just spend the whole time drinking and sobbing on each other's stories, or like, hey, you know, these guys suck. I hate all the users. I've got these problems. You've got those problems. I've got those problems too, man. We're so sad. Like, we get to that point where we break each other down and we're like empathetic with each other, but then we don't quite get to the point by the end of the weekend where we're building each other up again, right? Where we're saying, oh, you know what? Come to think of it, I actually have solved that problem that you're working on. Here's how I did it. Getting together with people and getting past that kind of commiseration, I think is one of the techniques. So the proposal earlier from a few folks was get together regularly with people in your community, even if it's virtual. You know, I have a weekly standing phone call with 5 of my best friends. We're in diverse, disparate industries, and we just talk about, you know, here are the problems I'm having, you know, life problems or professional problems. Here's how I've kind of overcome those. Hey, I've got this idea for something. What do you think about this? Give me feedback. And it's really helpful. Even if we don't always strictly stick to what we want to get accomplished in those calls, we have a good time just catching up, you know. And it's kind of a support group. It's a way for you to get away from the drudgery of the task, and to then go back to it and be a little bit more energized. Especially if you know, if somebody says to you, you know, I hated that, but it's like, you know, 8th grade math. I hated 8th grade math, but it laid the foundation for everything I do now. And so if I didn't have that, I would not have learned it. And that can re-energize you to go through the boring stuff and just see the bigger picture at the end. See that light at the end of the tunnel. And even if it's not physically larger, it at least looks larger in perspective. Good. Good. Well, thank you very much, and we will start up the final session now. Kind of wrap up the day. Next steps, what comes next. And Josh, I'll invite you up here. I've been standing here for about an hour, almost an hour and a half, and I gotta pee. Yes.
All right. So quite a bit of content, quite a long day. Hopefully your brain hurts in a good way. And for those who've been watching this on video, you can watch it at your own pace in your own chunks. The point here is we tried 1 year ago, we said, let's try an experiment. We'll fail fast, we'll iterate, but we want to break the cycle of doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I'm okay with failing, as long as we fail in new and interesting ways, right? It's getting a little tedious. And if you look to your left and your right, this used to be about firewalls. It used to be about, protecting corporate assets. And now it's about protecting your safety, your personal safety, your community, your way of life, your family. And to Beau's point in the last session about professional development, if you care about autonomy, mastery, and purpose, we've really found quite a bit of purpose in this year of experimentation. And there's been a real attitude change. We've focused more on soft skills than hard skills. We've focused more on outside the echo chamber than within it. We focus more on experimentation and iteration than monotony and defeat. And with most things in life, attitude is everything. And you can bring an attitude of cynicism and defeat, which is plaguing way too many of our friends, leading sometimes to stress and burnout. Or you can bring an attitude of hope, and not empty hope, but hope with action. And that leads down a different path. And for those of us who have tried, it's been a fulfilling path thus far. So the question I've had for the last 365 days is, should we keep going? And my answer is hell yes. It's a long road. It's a long view. It's going to take a lot of different things, but I am highly encouraged, not discouraged, by what we're doing. And I think hopefully you've seen today we talked to policy people, we talked to legal people, we talked to people in industry, we talked about professional soft skill development, about the changes in attitude to disclosure when human life and public safety is on the line. And this is a very different type of conversation than we're used to at these. And if you're looking for change and variety, you will find it here. It's uncharted territory, but worth doing the exploring. And with that, for now, I think the path forward is stop waiting for someone to fix the problem and figure out a way to be a part of that fix. If attitude is everything, choose wisely. Thank you.